Casper?
Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in, and welcome to a new series I'm starting. It's called Off Topic, and basically what that's going to mean is I'm going to talk about something, and it's not necessarily going to relate exactly to this gameplay that you're seeing in the background. It's basically going to be me talking about something that I think is probably relevant to our community, or at the very least something that I think you guys are going to be interested in. So in this very first episode, I'm going to address something that I've seen quite a lot recently, and it's the question, is TF2 dying? Or basically the claim that TF2 is dying. And I want to talk about that, and I think the really simple answer is no. No, it's not. I mean, if you want to get philosophical, anything that's moving towards death is technically dying, but is death imminent for TF2? Is that coming soon? No. Simply no. And there's a couple of things that I think explain why it's not dying. Basically, I think this game is going to die when one or both of these two things happen. One, when people stop playing it, and two, when the devs stop paying attention to it. And even if two does happen, if the devs do stop paying attention to it, the game can still live for a long time with people playing it. But let's look at those 2 points in detail. So let's take a look at, are the devs still paying attention to it? So quite recently there was the End of the Line update, which was meant to be this big update. Loads of stuff was meant to come into the game, and basically they added like, I don't know, 10 hats or something and nothing else. And people were disappointed, and understandably so. That doesn't mean that the devs are giving up on this game. If we take a look at the patch notes history for TF2, this is available on the wiki, what you'll see is that the rate of patches that are coming out for this game hasn't really reduced, ever. They're still putting out roughly the same amount of patches in 2014 that they've been doing all along. Okay, so these patches aren't necessarily major content updates like what we've seen before, but if they didn't care about this game, if they wanted it to die, if they wanted to let it die, they wouldn't be putting anything out at all. And when you think about it, when we've had all these major content updates, there is a limit to more things that they can add to the game before they're just clogging the game up. I mean, we've already had complaints from people about too many hats causing FPS drops and all these arguments. So if they do carry on adding stuff, then it's not necessarily going to be making the game better. Team Fortress 2 has got a lot in it. There's a lot to Team Fortress 2, there's a lot to do. Adding more stuff isn't necessarily going to make the game better, so just because there's no major content doesn't mean that there's not good things coming to the game. There's still patches, there's still fixes. Yes, okay, there's stupid bugs, you can still stab people in the face and kill them, but the game is still improving always by these patches that they're releasing. If we now look at the other point, one of the arguments that I've heard people make as to why TF2 is apparently dying is because a lot of people are apparently quitting the game. Now, I can see why you'd think that, and that's because a couple of high-profile people have said they don't want to play the game anymore, or they're sick of the X and they're sick of Y. Some of those people, or in fact most of those people, are competitive players, which, you know, fair enough, they've got a lot of influence in the community, a lot of people know who they are, so when they say something, it's going to sound like gospel, it's going to sound true. But really serious competitive players are, one, the people who will have played the game the most, you know, that's how they got so good, because they played the game loads to get good, and two, the people who've been playing the game the longest. So if they bought this game when it came out 7 years ago, nearly 8 now, or, you know, 7.5, whatever, of course they're going to start getting a little bit bored of it. It could be the best game ever. Maybe some of you think it is, but even 7 years playing the same game when you've got 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 or more hours in it, you're going to get a little bit bored and you're going to want to stop, and that's fair enough. But that doesn't mean that everyone's quitting TF2. It doesn't mean that the player base is reducing really that much at all. Just because a couple of people who started playing this game 7 years ago are quitting, it doesn't mean that there's the people who started 5 years ago are quitting, or 4, or 3, or 2. I mean, there's still new people playing every day. Whenever you go into a game and you see somebody get the mercenary medal dropped to them, that means that that's the first game they've played, that's the first time they've died, that's the first time they've got a weapon drop in TF2, that's the first time they loaded it up. There's still loads of people joining this game every day. Let's actually look at some actual figures of this game. There's this really cool website, steamcharts.com. I don't know who makes it, but well done to you, whoever you are. Basically, they scrape data out of Steam, and they check how many people are playing, or the top 10 games, or top 100 games, whatever, in a certain amount of time. So, if we look at this main chart here, we can see that currently there's around 70,000 or 61,000 people playing Team Fortress 2 right now, and in the last 30 days there was 93,000 people. That was the peak number within the last 30 days. So, you know, just a random given month over Christmas, or rather just over January, the beginning of this year. Now, if we scroll down and look at the top TF2 count ever, it was only 117,000, or close to 118,000. That was in August 2012. So although yes, there was 20, nearly 30,000 more people playing, as a percentage, it's not massive. So going from 94,000 up to 118,000, okay, yeah, it's got a lot of thousands of people, but as a proportion, as to say this game is nearly dead, is nowhere near enough. And if in fact we take a look at what happened in August 2012 when this big boom was, or when at least the largest count was, guess what? Man vs. Machine came out. So of course there's going to be a big spike at this period, because the game is almost doubled in content when Man vs. Machine came out. It's a completely new mode, a completely different way to play Team Fortress 2. People who have no interest in the main mode of Team Fortress 2, in payload and capture point and whatever, this game mode now, this wave mode, is a completely different mechanic, and that's going to bring in people who don't care. I mean, the game's free for a start, so it's perfectly possible that at least some proportion of these people were just downloading to try the new game mode. They all logged into the game at the same time, and then they left. And they never came back. And that's why now this figure's lower. Now, I'm by no means trying to argue that TF2 is at its peak and that it's as full of players as it's ever been, but the point I'm trying to make is that it is not dying, and people need to stop thinking that it is just because a couple of high-profile people have left or a couple of high-profile people are apathetic about the game. The game hasn't got worse, and if you log on right now and try and find a server, for me, there's literally thousands of servers where I've got a reasonable ping to connect to that have got players in them. So how can a game with so many players in it be dying? I'm imagining not a lot of you are Call of Duty fans, and well done, you've made a wise choice. But if you go to any COD forums talking about Advanced Warfare, the newest iteration of COD, you'll see people complaining about, oh, I can't find any games, there's hardly anyone playing. So when you take into consideration that COD is obviously an extremely popular game across the world, and that has got significantly less players playing it than a game such as Team Fortress 2, you could never say that that game is at least close to death. So I hope that helps to explain my point of view on this. I do not believe Team Fortress 2 is going to die anytime soon. And we're fairly confident there is an Engineer versus Spy update coming. We don't know this for sure, it's not been officially announced, but there is files in the game for this update. Well, I mean, why would they be there? There's a bunch of stuff in the game that's been added reasonably recently to suggest that there is new features coming. Plus, with Valve still making loads of money on Team Fortress 2, they're not about to abandon it, they're not about to stop updating it, so it's not going to die anytime soon. I hope everybody enjoyed hearing me rant about something for a few minutes. If you did enjoy, obviously let me know. Thumbs up is great, and if you're new here, please subscribe because I'll do this sort of thing all the time. And if you like this off-topic, as I'm going to call it, let me know because I've quite enjoyed it. I'll happily do some more. Thanks everyone, and I shall see you next time.